Hello and welcome to Walker Tea Review. I'm Jason Walker, and it is that time of year where many people are getting their wish lists in order, and that applies to teas as well. There are teas this holiday season that you may have an eye on. Also, it refers to or it points to the spring harvest coming up in the Chinese spring harvest starts around March-ish, or late March, early April. I should be more precise. Also be thinking about reviews that your wish list for me, teas that you like to see tasted here at Walker Tea Review and reviewed, so that you can be thinking about what teas are likely to be the better harvest, the better choices, the better price range for you. So that's something to look at. Today we've got a tea that is from a smaller company, local-ish. Local to New York. They've worked with actually another company that has been around for a while, and they are kind of partnering up, and they bring a lot of true classics of teas. So we're going to look at one of those today, and well, I'll go ahead and talk about this as I pour. This is a Tea Guanyin that I'm talking about, or Tea Guanyin as it's described, and I'll tell more about that. And I'm going to use today you may have noticed I've got out a lot of my regular equipment, but I am using a slightly smaller gaiwan because I want to use a little bit slightly smaller sample or amount used this time. And because this is about a 3-ounce gaiwan, I want to scoop out just enough of my sample here to really kind of cover the bottom 1.5 inches of the diameter there of this little gaiwan here. And I'm going to add my water that's been brought to a boil. It's been cooling for a minute or two as I've been talking. Now with Tea Guanyins, because they're wrapped up pretty tightly, balled up pretty tightly, they're going to expand. So it may look like a small amount at first, but it's going to take up a lot more space very quickly. I'm going to put on my gaiwan, and I've added enough water so that when I put the lid on, a little bit of water rises above the rim there, creates a kind of seal. I can set that off to the side. Now, let's talk a little bit about this tea and kind of introduce it a little more carefully. The tea is from Mandarin's Tea Room. It is their 2009 AnxiTGYSelect or Tea Guanyin Select grade. This is not the standard tin. This was an extra tin that I had lying around, simply because I needed to keep this tea in an airtight container. Depending on the size, if you were to get a sample 7-gram size, you may not have something to protect that in, but a sample 7-gram size is available for $14. It is a fall harvest, before I forget to mention a little bit about that. And also to say that be careful if you use your own tins. You want to be able to use tins that don't have any either latent aromas from other teas or chemical interactions when you place it in, because that can really throw off the dry leaf aroma, and it can even get in so that when you steep the tea, it just doesn't smell and taste the way it was intended to, or originally did taste and smell. So a little bit of note about storing your tea there. Let's go ahead and look at this tea, though. Okay, I did pick up a lot of the kind of characteristic floral component, which to my nose is a little bit of something around, it's around the gardenia orchid type. There are some of those notes there, combined with, and I picked this up previously and slightly in this one, and that's a little bit of there's some nice cold pressed extra virgin Spanish olive oils that have the kind of aroma that's characteristic, or that I'm picking up a little bit in here. Okay, so let's go ahead now and talk a little bit about this shape and color, because this tea is more lightly roasted. I'll go ahead, I can say it that way. so that you are getting colors that are a dark green over towards a green green yellow. So there's that brightness to it, that lighter color to it. These are balled. Several of these balls are large, indicating that we're probably getting more than one leaf together, but we'll be able to see that more in the wet leaf, really. As far as the sheen or the gloss or any kind of notes on that, I mean, it does look fairly consistent. It looks clean and crisp. It's not excessively glossy by any means either, though. So that really kind of introduces our dry leaf. I'm not going to spend too much more time on that. I'm going to go ahead and seal that up so that it stays as fresh as possible. But we're going to get ready to pour now. And to do so, I'm going to get out my pitcher because, one, it lets us look at the colors together. Great for serving if you're serving more than one person. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to, using my lid, and I'm actually kind of pushing the leaves away. I'm going to make a kind of pouring area. So with a guy one like this, you're putting your your middle finger and your thumb on the rim there of the bowl. You are holding the lid with your index finger, and you're going to pour fairly quickly, fairly smoothly, so it goes, so you don't lose a lot of drips in there. There we are. Let that sit for just a moment as we talk a little bit about this wet leaf. Okay, give it a smell. Still the gardenia. Still a little bit of that orchid type. Combined now with, there's a kind of buttery component to it. There's a melted butter, so this is giving a heavier cream-like kind of texture there. Sometimes I'll come across a lightly oxidized that has or lightly roasted like this one that has kind of a lima bean type component. Not so with this one. Again, this one's richer. It's more savory, a little more buttery, combined with those floral notes that I touched on before. Now let's go ahead and kind of take out one of these leaves and look for a moment. Here's a leaf, good 2 inches or so in length. Let's see, fairly intact. Got a little bit of damage on the one side there, but that's natural. That can be naturally expected from some of the rolling processes. Our leaf here is fairly resilient. It's not tearing that easily. I could force it, but I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it as it is for now. What else do we have? I'm looking for any kind of sets. Well, so far what I'm seeing is mostly individual leaves. Okay. Looking around just a little bit more. Also, there are some leaves that did not completely unfurl yet. You could kind of gently use your finger and tease those out flat. But I'm going to leave that there as an indicator. Often that's a good sign to show that subsequent steepings this will have a flavor matching or similar levels of flavor and aroma. It means that not all the flavor and aroma was steeped out on the first steep there. Actually, I'm not finding any. Okay, so this is the last time, but I'm not finding any sets. These are all individual leaves there, so that's worth noting. That can be a factor in how much is steeped out, like we talked about. If subsequent steeps unfurl, release more of their aroma earlier or later. But let's go now and talk a little bit about this liquor. First off, we've got a nice bright golden yellow type color. Brighter yellow than, say, a honey. It's not as brown as a honey, so it's brighter than that. It's clear. It's fairly clear. Not a whole lot of particulates floating around in there. Still, Okay, it's leaning over a little bit towards a kind of a light vegetal type, light lima bean type smell, but still that kind of gardenia and or orchid component is there as well. So let's give this a shot. First thing that really hit me was the texture there's a powdery component to it. Sometimes I find this with some greens or even some black teas actually. There's this dry kind of component. I guess I find it more often with some black, so that's why it surprised me. It's a kind of a powdery type texture. It's a very light, gentle astringency that's not bitter. Then the powdery sensation was really on the front of my tongue there, and it just kind of it was like having maybe like a tongue scraper that just kind of scrapes off a layer of your tongue and just kind of wakes it up. So it's a positive note in that sense. Secondly, towards the back here, and around the jawbone here, inside there, you get this kind of, it feels like it's got some heft to it. It's got some thickness to it. A lot of lighter roasted can tend to be kind of watery feeling in the mouth, but this one has that little bit of astringency at the front, kind of powdery feel. Towards the back, it gets thicker. It gets heavier. It's almost, a light broth. I'll say it that way. But as far as the aromas go, yeah, you're still getting a lot of that kind of gardenia. How should I say? Yeah, gardenia. A little bit of that kind of orchid. Maybe you might detect some magnolia in there as well. But this floral component, a lot of times the floral aspect just kind of tends to, with other teas, travels up into my nose, and I really just feel like it's all nasal. It's all just stuck in my nose, flowers getting shoved up my nostrils, kind of thing. This one, on the other hand, and the aftertaste, especially around I'll say the upper throat here, you're still getting this kind of floral aspect, combined with a little bit of, like I said, a little bit of a kind of a buttery texture there still. So it gives us a sweetness. It gives a kind of floral component as well. It gives a textured, brothy aspect as well. So I still feel like there's a light coating there. So let me give it one more shot here, because some teaguanins like this, their flavors can enhance. They can bring out more as it cools. So looking, the other thing to note, and that's going to be something that you're going to experience for yourself, and it's going to take a little bit of time doing this for myself off camera and for you as well, is to notice the acidity level. After you drink this tea, does it give a kind of, for me, it translates into this kind of stomach growling, like my stomach is empty, and that is often explained to me as the level of acidity in your stomach has been affected or increased by the tea. With this one, I have not noticed, in off-camera tastings, I have not noticed as much of that compared to other light roasted teaguanins. So that's another positive note in its favor. So looking at this tea as a whole, I'll have to give this tea probably a 93, because it gives a rounded texture elements to it, as far as the powdery in the front, the kind of thicker brothy aspect towards the back and inside of your lower jaw here. It gives an aftertaste, which I'm still tasting it, so it's quite sustained. It is slightly floral. It is fruity. It's got a little bit of what I was talking about earlier, in that kind of buttery, even maybe a little vegetable. So it's got a very thick, it's got a complex and lasting aftertaste. It's got a nuanced palate there, lots of feel there. It's got the other thing is, like I said, those aromas which are matured and developed, and they're just not overpowering, overwhelming. They're in balance with the other components of the tea, and so that's why I would have to give this tea such a high score. Come back to Walker Tea Review, where you may be adding this tea to your wish list or others for us to taste together here.